I've been there spending a weekend hunting for a cheap 4K display that promises big screen vibes, only to end up with a flat panel that looks great on the box but turns movie night into a struggle to hear any dialogue. The regret hits hard when you realize the built-in speakers are nothing more than a tinny afterthought and you end up buying a separate soundbar that barely fits the space. That's why I wanted to see if the ViewSonic IFP8641, an 86-inch 4K UHD Android ViewBoard with a 55W soundbar and a 100W USB-C power hub, actually feels like a smarter buy. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The first thing I considered was the risk of overpaying for a one-size-fits-all solution that looks impressive but fails in the living room. This isn't a tiny classroom panel that gets tucked away in a closet. It's a full-size interactive display meant to replace a TV, a projector, and even a conference room whiteboard. That ambition brings a lot of questions. Will the built-in sound be enough for a family of 4 watching a blockbuster? Does the Android platform make streaming a breeze, or just another layer of menus? And can the 86-inch screen actually sit comfortably in a typical medium-sized living room without overwhelming the space? I started by testing the dialogue clarity on a couple of recent releases. Think fast-talking sci-fi and a drama with lots of low-key conversations. The 55W soundbar, while not a dedicated subwoofer unit, does a respectable job of lifting the mids and keeping the words intelligible. When the main character whispers, you can hear it without cranking the volume, which is a big win for late-night viewing. Bass is present, but it's more of a gentle thump than a deep rumble. In a medium-sized room, about 1,215 feet, the low end is enough to feel the impact of an explosion without shaking the picture frame. If you're hoping for a home theater experience with a separate sub, you'll probably want to add one, but for most households the built-in audio already feels like a step up from the tinny speakers of budget 4K TVs. Surround effect is another area where expectations can be tricky. The display's soundbar is a single unit, so you won't get the full-blown, multi-channel immersion of a true 5.1 system. However, the integrated microphone array and the audio processing software do a decent job of creating a pseudo-surround feel. When you watch a nature documentary with birds chirping all around, the sound seems to come from the left and right edges, making the experience feel more three-dimensional than a flat TV speaker. It's not a replacement for a dedicated sound system, but it's enough to make movie nights feel richer without a tangled mess of wires. Connectivity is where the ViewSonic really shines. The single-cable USB-C connection handles power, video, and audio, which means you can plug your laptop, a streaming stick, or even a gaming console with just one cord. That eliminates the clutter you normally see around a TV stand and makes switching between a Zoom call, a Netflix binge, and a classroom lesson feel almost seamless. The Android EDLA certification guarantees that the built-in apps are optimized for the display size, so you won't get the same pixel stretching you sometimes see on cheap Android TV boxes. I tested the native Netflix and YouTube apps, and the UI scales nicely, keeping icons and text readable from across the room. The remote itself is fairly intuitive. Press a button, swipe left or right, and you're in the right app. There's a slight learning curve with the voice commands, but the microphone array picks up commands reliably even when you're speaking from the opposite side of the room. Now, who should consider buying this massive interactive board? If you're a family that wants a single device to handle movies, gaming, video calls, and occasional classroom-style presentations, the IFP8641 makes a lot of sense. It's especially appealing for small business owners who need an all-in-one meeting hub. The 64-point touch works well for brainstorming, the Android platform lets you run collaboration apps, and the built-in microphone array captures voices clearly for remote participants. The eco-friendly visual performance also means lower power consumption compared to older 4K panels, which is a nice bonus if you're watching for a few hours each night. On the flip side, the IFP8641 isn't for everyone. If you live in a tiny apartment where an 86-inch screen dominates the wall, you'll probably feel cramped. The size also demands a sturdy mounting solution. A flimsy TV stand will wobble under the weight, and the built-in speakers might bounce off a low ceiling, reducing the bass response you'd otherwise get in a more open space. For audiophiles who demand a true surround sound setup, the 55W soundbar, even with its decent clarity, won't satisfy the craving for deep, room-filling bass. In that case, you'd still need an external sound system, which defeats part of the all-in-one appeal. One practical weakness I noticed is the lack of a dedicated subwoofer output. The soundbar tries to compensate, but when you watch an action film with sustained low-frequency explosions, the thump fades.